Story 1. I swear I do. I've worked in retail for a long time, but no matter where I go I get asked about stuff at least once a week. Here are 2 examples. First story. I was just leaving the movie theater one night when my headlights went out. No problem, there's a big blue mart right across the street. It's around 9 p.m., so there's not many people in the store, which was fine with me, so I could get in and get out quickly. I used to work at this store, so I knew the general area to find HL bulbs, but not which aisle. I enter an aisle, and I'm looking at something that has caught my eye. As I enter the aisle, I hear from a few aisles back. There he is. That's the guy I need to talk to. I keep minding my business, hoping it's an employee and not me. No such luck. As I hear him getting closer, I'm starting to tense up and I'm thinking, don't say it, don't say it, don't say it. Please don't say it. If you've ever worked for Big Blue Mart, you know what it is because you get asked it 100 times a day. So he comes to the aisle, looks at me and says it. Do you work here? Keep in mind, I'm wearing ripped jeans, a t-shirt, and sandals. My brain started to automatically switch to retail mode. It's a curse. And I was just about to give him a friendly, I'm sorry, I don't. Then I remembered I don't work here anymore. So I quickly turned around and started jittering towards my clothes and said to him on an angry voice, Does it look like I work here? He replies, Oh, so guess not. And he stands there looking like an idiot just staring at me. I pushed past him and left, and I don't know or care if he ever found anyone to help. Second story. This is a quickie. My wife and I were out running errands and doing a little shopping. We had just had lunch about 30 minutes prior, and I had drank an entire large soda. Result, I had to pee. I was trying to hold it till we got to our next destination, but it was getting harder. We passed a Kmart and she pulled in. I start walking quickly in the store. As I come in, some lady stands right in front of me, giving me a spiel about the store's shopper's card. But I interrupted and just said, Where's the bathroom? She pointed the back and I got taken care of business. As I leave the restroom, our lady stops and asks me where the paper towels were. I'm dressed about the same as the other story. I had no idea where they were, so I sent her all the way down to the opposite side of the store. She thanks me and heads that direction. I walk out of the store still having no idea where the paper towels were. Story 2. For background, I was a 19-year-old college student in a university under the hospitality course, majoring in culinary entrepreneurship, and every week we had to buy ingredients for our cooking-baking subject. Our category was petit four cakes. In our groups, each member was assigned to buy certain ingredients based on availability as we go to university or back home. Our uniform, quite important, consists of a light cream short-sleeve polo, green and blue striped necktie, dark blue vest with our university course logo embroidered on the left chest side, dark blue pants, a black shoes, and an all-yellow ID lace and card. While an employee uniform is wearing a short-sleeve white polo shirt with company logo, black pants and black leather shoes. They also have dark blue ID lace and white ID. On to the story. The class ended, and I decided to buy the ingredients in a supermarket near the train station. As I arrived at that station, I went straight to the mall and onto the supermarket area. At the supermarket, I removed my necktie and vest and put it in my bag and placed it in the claim and deposit station because big bags are not allowed and you might snuck in a few items. The only ingredients that were assigned to me were heavy cream and powdered sugar, so I went to the dairy and creamery section first. As I picked up the cream and placed it in a basket, an old lady went to me, and here is how the conversation went. Not so accurate as this happens before the virus. Nice lady, excuse me, sir. Me, yes ma'am. Can you help me find butter? The one I bought yesterday was a margarine. It gives a weird texture to my cookies. Sure ma'am. As the creamery and dairy section was close to each other, I went as well on suggesting items for her. If you want the cheapest one, this brand has a good unsalted and salted butter for you. But if you want quality, I recommend this for you. I used this when I baked some myself. Thank you, young man. May I ask for your assistance on finding more baking needs? I might need your suggestion on this one. Me, being a good boy, helped her as I also got my second and last item. Thank you so much, young man. I can take care of the rest now. You're welcome, ma'am. Because of helping her, I decided to buy a soda and snacks for my trips back home before going for checkout. As I finished shopping, I saw the same lady with the manager talking about a nice young man who helped her and demanded to give that person a raise. When she saw me as I claimed my bag, she approached me as she pointed in my direction and said this to the manager. That's him. That's the young man I was talking about. I would like to ask on giving him a raise for helping me. Manager, ma'am, I appreciate your good feedback, but I'm sorry, he doesn't work here. Wait, you didn't work here? Me. Sorry, ma'am, but I am only a student. Here is my ID. I think you've mistaken me for an employee due to almost similar uniforms. Oh, how embarrassing for me to ask a complete stranger and waste a manager's time. Manager, it's fine, ma'am. If he was to actually work here, I would consider your comment to him. It's fine for me too, ma'am. I am not that busy anyway, and I'm just helping when I can even if I don't work here. I'm sorry again, and thank you very much for helping me. You're welcome again, and I'm happy to help. And then we went on our way. From that day on, I went my way home and ate my snacks feeling more delightful just because I help a person when I can. Sorry, no complaints and no Karens, just a wholesome ending here. Story 3. My parents have been hosting Christmas and Thanksgiving for several years for both sides of parents' family every year for Christmas on my dad's side and rotating hosting on my mom's. About 5 years ago, they stopped hosting Thanksgiving. Every year they would go all out with their cleaning. All hands on deck in the house, cleaning every part of the living rooms upstairs and down, dining room, kitchen, laundry room, and bathroom, including a platform no one can see the whole thing, except from the upstairs living room where my nutcracker collection goes. Their house is decently sized, so it takes several hours just to clean it. My parents are older now, mid-50s. I have been moved out for several years, and my sister is gone on a cruise until after the new year. My mom and dad had planned on having a Christmas with just my dad's mom, my Aunt Elle, and my Aunt C and Uncle J, my cousin, and me at our house. Well, Elle told another aunt, and I guess everyone who knows are pissed about it. Elle ranted at my grandma about it, and she told my parents she wasn't going to come. There are a lot of people, 10, 15 depending on which part of my family's side comes due to an argument from like 6 years ago between the sister of a family member who was hospitalized and the guy's wife, and they haven't gotten along even after he was released. My aunt is petty, and we know that she's just being pissy because her kids weren't invited. I'm pretty sure of the reason Elle was invited was because I didn't want to have to be the one who was my grandma's ride, because I like to stay for a while at my parents' house, since I don't see them often, and my grandma wants to go home as soon as food and everything else is done. I went over to do my laundry at my parents' house on Thanksgiving because I don't have a washer and dryer, and the entire time I was finishing up the 2 loads I had, she was asking when we were going to leave and even put her coat on as I was taking the first load to my car. My mom wants to send an apologetic text to them and explain why they aren't hosting. I told her to tell them if they want someone to host so bad they can host for the family because they are tired of the stress and effort they put into hosting just to put just as much effort into cleaning up the mess by themselves afterwards. My dad is telling her to not even suggest that someone else host because they should already be volunteering to host or just not respond at all. But I know that my mom will respond, and it will be too nice to people who don't even bother to keep in touch with them after holidays are over. Story 4. This happened about 3 years ago. My little brother and I were both in our early 20s at the time, both living at home with my mom and dad. The way our house is set up is that the second floor has 2 windows facing the street. The one to the left is my bedroom, and to the right is my brother's bedroom. Our house is on one long straight street that curves into another and is broken up into other side streets. Our house happens to be at the intersection of the last side street before it starts to curve into the other. At this intersection, there is a bus stop for the local public schools, the very one I took throughout my school career, which was nice since I could just walk out the front door and be at my bus stop in 10 seconds. Although the bus stop is close to my house, you have to turn around and directly stare at my house to see anything. You might have some luck with our living room windows, but my mom keeps those closed pretty much all the time because of the dogs liking to bark at everything. My bedroom blinds were permanently closed, but my brother likes his open. This was also around the holidays, and my parents are decorating nuts, so there was one of those big LED lights in the shape of a bell on his window, obscuring the view even more. So his window is further away, and you really have to crane your neck to see it, and you're not going to see that much. So I wake up around 8 because the dogs are barking after someone knocks on the door. I peek out my blinds and see a cop car. I think the worst, so I rush downstairs and see my mom out talking to a cop. She comes in livid and then tells me what happened. Apparently one of the moms that waited at the bus stop with her kids, elementary school age, saw my brother in his window and thought he was perving on the kids, so she called the cops and said a whole group of parents was concerned. She actually thought it was my dad, according to the police officer, and reported it as him being in his underwear. My brother has sensory issues because of his autism and doesn't wear a shirt but wears pajama pants. This is what he was wearing when the cops were called. And funnily enough, we tested it out. From the bus stop view of him in his window, you can only see him from right at the chest line, for lack of a better term. You'd see worse in the summertime with a guy mowing his lawn or at the pool. And my brother, as his big sister who knows him, was not watching the kids. He was almost certainly pacing around his room and stimming. If he did look, it was a quick glance. He is not someone who stares. My poor baby brother thought he was going to jail. The cop was really annoying too and told my mom to put up curtains, because apparently walking around shirtless in your own home is illegal. And did I mention it was in the morning and my brother didn't even have lights on in his room? This entitled mother must have really been staring at him to figure out that he was apparently, and incorrectly, wearing underwear. But whoever this mom was that called, messed with the wrong person. My mom can be nuts when one of her kids gets messed with. It's great. She ended up posting about the situation on a big local news group, and people were livid on behalf of my brother. Some bikers offered to sit on our front porch shirtless with some beers in solidarity. My mom actually narrowed it down to 2 of the moms on that side street as well, and found out both of them were in the group and were probably seeing how people were reacting to them calling the cops and getting torn apart. Someone told my mom on the post to talk to the moms the next day at the bus stop, and my mom was going to do it and explain. But the next day, none of the kids showed up at the stop. Pretty much confirmed that the entitled mother had seen the post and was embarrassed, as she should have been. And then from that point on, the moms just waited in their cars with the kids until the last possible second, then dropped them off at the bus stop. If the entitled mother had just come to our door, she would have seen the sticker we have alerting in case of an emergency that someone with autism lives here. She could have put 2 and 2 together. She could have looked at my dad's work truck and seen the autism awareness magnets. She could have just kindly asked my mom. She could have just turned and faced the correct direction and stopped straining her neck to stare at my brother in his second-floor window behind a Christmas decoration. But no. Immediately decides it's my dad in his underwear because a shirtless man when my kids are present means pedophile. Call the cops quick. Yeah, I'm still kinda mad. Glad she got publicly torn apart even though no one knew it was her specifically. Story 5. January. Submit plans to the Homeowner Association Design Committee for a swimming pool. Given the OK and told the project looks beautiful. Lead developer actually contacts the pool builder for a pool of his own. March. Landscaper comes to me asking if my neighbors can have some limestone steps built alongside their house, but would come into my property by about 4 feet. Knowing that I'm building a pool and landscaping with it, as well as a fence, I say no. He comes back a bit later saying they would like to buy a sliver of my land so they can have their steps. I say no again, though I considered giving them a purposely ridiculous price. They ask him to ask me to sell the land a few more times, until I finally tell him they need to approach me directly, instead of sending a poor landscape salesman to negotiate. Quick backstory on the neighbors. He's on our state's Board of Regents, and is the president of the company my father worked for 35 years. My dad was a sales representative, and used to be on commission. One year, the sales team knocked it out of the park, many of them taking home 6 figures. The next year, they were all put on salary. On one occasion, my dad asked for a raise, and my neighbor denied him, saying, "We've looked at your situation, and decided you make enough for a family of your size in this area." Meanwhile, my neighbor lives in a gigantic mansion. Fast forward to now. I live in one of the nicest neighborhoods in my town, have worked super hard to get where I am, and wasn't born with a silver spoon. When my neighbors moved in, they have reminded me several times that they're downsizing, whatever. They love their smaller lot because it's easier to maintain. They know who my dad is, but I'm not sure if they know we aren't exactly too fond of them for trying to keep their workforce from becoming as successful as they could. Basically, I'm not giving these people anything. August. Pool gets completed, and I have the fence built. That very evening, I can see the neighbors in their sunroom looking at my yard, and their body language is not positive. A couple days later, one of the contractors working on the pool tells me he thinks the neighbors aren't happy with my fence. Someone pulled up in a truck and started taking pictures of it, etc. Of course they aren't. Their downsized house is so close to the edge of their lot. My fence doesn't give them a lot of room. The homeowner association requires 3 feet of clearance off the property line. The fence is so close to their house, I actually become concerned that it's on their property line. I order a survey, and it comes back saying I'm clear by 5.5 feet in the front and 10 feet in the back. Same night, I get the survey results. The head of the homeowner association calls me and tells me the fence is on the property line and I have to move it. I say, actually, I was concerned it was less than 3 feet away, so I had a surveyor verify its position, and it's actually 5 and 10 feet away. He seemed surprised, but also fairly skeptical, so I have the surveyor forward the results, and he emails me asking me to have them put stakes in the ground over the property pins so he can see for himself. As I was taking the trash out this morning, I was greeted by the surveyors. They asked me if I was having neighbor problems, and I quickly explained they thought the fence was on their property, and was just as quickly reassured that I was good to go. Anyway, the neighborhood block party and homeowner association meeting are being hosted at the neighbor's house later this month, and I'm not sure whether I should show up and act like a smug jerk or just throw a pool party in my own yard at the same time. Story 6. Before anyone comments it, please know, ding dong, the witch is dead. This woman may have been rotten to the core, but she was still my mother, and I'd like to just move on and forget now that she's passed away. I've got too much else to worry about in life than dealing with memories of Evil Mama Bear anyway. Also, Evil Mama Bear is the acronym for Evil Mama Bar, just in case any new readers were wondering. To start things off, not too long after Evil Mama Bear finally moved away, my girlfriend suddenly gave me an ultimatum, and that was that I seriously get therapy, or she might leave me. She'd held off on that until after Evil Mama Bear left, and insisted that I couldn't drag my feet anymore. She said I needed to put an end to the obsession I had with getting back at my insane narcissist mother for trying to ruin my childhood. I finally agreed to the therapy. It was good at first. I even had the therapist laughing at some of my stories. And they even admitted it would have been hard for them not to do the same things to Evil Mama Bear, were they in my shoes. I was given a mostly clean bill of mental health after a while, despite the issue with Evil Mama Bear's flying monkey nosy Nancy. Things should have been fine. Till my girlfriend suddenly told me she was pregnant. We're not sure how it happened. I used protection, but we did have one rip. We thought it'd be fine because she was on the pill. I was in a complete panic at first, and she walked out on me for a while because of it. but I apologized and resolved to become a great parent. I made sure she knew I was 100% committed to being a father and a husband, if she was willing. We had a pretty short engagement and got married in a courthouse. Neither of us felt like a big wedding, and the honeymoon was postponed due to her pregnancy and our respective careers. When we eventually learned the gender of our unborn child through ultrasound, we found out we were having a girl. I was elated. My wife was elated. But evil Mama Bear was stalking the family social media, and a few of my relatives posted about my upcoming daughter. Suddenly my lawyer got a request from evil Mama Bear asking that I drop the restraining order. Although the narcissistic tearjerker of a letter evil Mama Bear wrote and sent was pretty cringy. I wasn't allowed to see the letter at the time because it'd be a breach of the row. My lawyer could only give me a very vague summary, but after evil Mama Bear died, the row was null and void, so I could finally view it, and I'll write it out for you all. Evil Mama Bear's letter, to my only son Craggle. I know we've had our differences, but for the sake of my future granddaughter, please lift the restraining order. I miss having family so very much, and I couldn't imagine never being in my new baby's life. She's not even born yet, and I already want to take her into my arms and just never share her with anyone. I just know she'll be such a perfect, beautiful little girl, because she has my genes in her. Please let me see her. She'll never grow up right if I'm not there for my baby. And if I'm not allowed to see her, I just know I'd never be able to live. I know you'll do the right thing. You have to. Because I am the matriarch. And you won't keep me away. I've already given up on your sister. She married a man I could never see as my son-in-law and refused to see reason. But you have redeemed yourself by marrying a beautiful white woman and giving me the granddaughter I always wanted. I just know my baby will be perfect. Love and kisses, evil Mama Bear. So that's what she wrote. Creepy, unhinged, and she repeatedly referred to my daughter as my baby, like she was completely forgetting the baby was not hers. My lawyer asked me how we should respond to her request about the row. I told him he already knew exactly what I'd say, so to just go ahead and say it. And he did, with much enthusiasm. But that incident sent my stress about evil Mama Bear right back up, and basically ruined months of progress with my therapist. Evil Mama Bear had a weird obsession with girls related to her, and hates boys in general. And now that my wife and I were having a daughter, she had zeroed in on us with a telescope, or maybe a sniper rifle. She wouldn't even acknowledge her grandson, my nephew. But the second she found out that me, the son she always treated like absolute garbage, was having a daughter with my wife, well, her baby rabies kicked into mega overdrive. When I didn't lift the row, evil Mama Bear resorted to calling me directly at work from the company landline. She was crying and begging me to lift the restraining order, because she wanted to know her future granddaughter. I told her my unborn daughter was not her grandchild. I'd disowned her as a mother, just like my sister had, and my daughter will never know her as a grandmother. She doesn't deserve it. Not after what she's done. She started to screech at me that I could not do this to her, and that I was denying her rights as a grandmother and matriarch. I told her she was insane to think she was a matriarch, and then hung up. But she called right back, twice. She possibly didn't know, but all calls on the company landline are recorded, so I had the recordings and the call logs sent to my lawyer, and told him to release the hounds. Evil Mama Bear was arrested for violating the row. This time I was happy to get her arrested, because she no longer lives around here. I held back before the other times she violated the row, because any more arrests could have potentially delayed her moving away. But that wasn't the case anymore. Evil Mama Bear got arrested, and somehow actually spent some time in jail, just for those phone calls violating the row. I half expected her to get off lightly with her feeble old lady routine or something. But damn, the law don't mess around in Texas. My daughter was born a few months later. She's very healthy and growing well. My wife doesn't want me posting any key details about her, and I'm respecting that. Also, for those who kept telling me to sell my house before in comments of my previous posts, I still won't. This is a great house, and was my dad's house. I couldn't bear to part with it. Not to mention I refused to be any farther away from the company I inherited from my dad. As for evil Mama Bear, well, she got a lawyer and filed a grandparents' rights lawsuit against me as soon as she was out of jail. She actually said that I was going to be a horrible parent to a little girl, and I couldn't be trusted without her guidance. And though we never actually got direct confirmation if it was her, we know it had to be evil Mama Bear who repeatedly called CPS on us. CPS came to see us with an attitude like they were expecting the worst. But they were impressed by my house and the nursery, and they determined everything said was false. But they still showed up again after getting more anonymous reports. They investigated again, found nothing again, complimented my home again. They couldn't tell me it was evil Mama Bear. But I know it was her that made the false reports. Who else would it be? CPS ended up knocking one more time. But by the third time, they were just going through the motions because they had to follow up. We were completely cooperative. My daughter was healthy. The house was immaculate. There was literally nothing that CPS would consider a problem. Evil Mama Bear's case for grandparents' rights was easily denied. The judge took one look at all the details of her prior history and said she had no case, not only because of my row against her, but also because she had no prior relationship with my daughter. Plus, there was also the fact that evil Mama Bear was openly a misandrist and was a racist toward my brother-in-law. And the record of when my lawyer had evil Mama Bear sign a contract to keep her away from my sister. Said contract also prevented any grandparents' rights to any of my sister's current and future children. And then there was the false reports to CPS, which evil Mama Bear was the most likely culprit of doing. On top of that, I had a ton of details on what evil Mama Bear had done to me over the course of my life, and how I keep gnomes pretty much everywhere because she's so afraid of them. She won't come near. There was so much evidence and detail we had against evil Mama Bear that any sane judge would realize in an instant evil Mama Bear was not grandma material. That should have been it. But evil Mama Bear filed an appeal. It was denied. So she tried to file another appeal on the basis of Texas law, instead of my state's law. Said appeal was also denied because I and my family are not residents of Texas, nor do we plan to ever be. Whatever lawyer evil Mama Bear had found to help her was likely just using her for a paycheck, because even an idiot could see the case was doomed to fail from the start when an Roe was involved. So what does evil Mama Bear decide it's a good idea to do? She called me again, this time to spit the worst kind of venom she could at me. She sounded very intoxicated, and the stuff she was accusing me of, well, it was very clear she'd completely lost touch with reality. She was accusing me of downright heinous things that never happened. She claimed I beat her all the time, and that I'll likely beat my own wife and child too. She said I stole money from her and my sister, claimed I was somehow stalking her in Texas, and she even accused me of SAW towards her, which I will not go into detail about. But let's just say the very thought of the things she was believing in her own head made me want to vomit. She claimed I was a monster, and she was terrified of me. If that were true, I doubt she'd have called me like that. Making me the bad guy in her head must have been one of the only ways she had left to mentally function. But we found out later she was also on very hard drugs. So she was probably badly both intoxicated and inebriated when she called me. You can bet I had my lawyer sick Texas police on her again. We notified apps too, since evil Mama Bear seemed in a state that was dangerous to herself and others. But she wasn't at her home in Texas. Police had no idea where she was. They couldn't find her anywhere. She'd gone off the grid. I was worried she was hiding somewhere nearby and stalking us. Knowing evil Mama Bear, she was possibly prepared to do something absolutely insane. So I sent my wife and daughter to her parents' house, and my sister and Bill went to his parents' house for a while. We were expecting the worst. Till a few weeks later, someone dumped off evil Mama Bear in front of a hospital nowhere near us. She'd odd badly on a cocktail of drugs and alcohol. She was brought in for emergency treatment. But there was no saving her. She was dead before they could do much of anything. We found out her liver was already failing, and her body was rather thin from heavy drinking and malnutrition, which likely contributed to her mental instability. But there was a cocktail of hard drugs in her system too. I think she was just ready to die. As if for some final screw you, evil Mama Bears will actually demanded that I, as the elder of her 2 children, be the one to handle her funeral. She knew I'd hate doing that, but I did it, just so my sister wouldn't have to. And no, evil Mama Bear had no life insurance, though I'm not sure it would have paid out under the circumstances if she did. Not very many relatives showed up for the funeral. Not even the flying monkey Nosy Nancy, even though my lawyer sent her the funeral info. But just to be petty, I had the funeral in my backyard, with gnomes all around evil Mama Bear's urn. Evil Mama Bear had no grave prepared either, and neither my sister or I wanted to look for one for her. We certainly didn't want her buried near our dad, so we mutually decided evil Mama Bear's urn would go to my sister to do what she wanted with it. Evil Mama Bear's will, as completely expected, was vaguely worded and gave everything she had to my sister, aside from the money allotted for her funeral. Not that I wanted anything from her. The will was years old. Evil Mama Bear hadn't bothered to update it since before my sister met her husband. But it also meant my sister not only inherited evil Mama Bear's money, but also her new house in Texas. We went to see it, and it was a brand new double-wide manufactured home. Not bad as a retirement house, and no surprise, evil Mama Bear had it well furnished. There was some debate on what to do with the house. Sell the property, rent it out, or live in it. It was a hard choice for my sister since it was a nice house, but ultimately she and her husband decided to sell it. They did not want to move that far away, and they did not want to manage the property long distance as landlords either, so they sold it. But not before secretly burying evil Mama Bear's urn somewhere on the property, which spans a couple dozen acres. I guess it's fitting her remains stayed on her old family land. Let's hope nobody comes along with a metal detector. But my sister, in one last act of glorious pettiness, put a small gnome toy in the urn with evil Mama Bear's ashes before burial. I just about fell over busting a gut when she told me she did that. For my sister, even after taxes, the money from the sale, and the money she'd inherited from evil Mama Bear was more than enough for her and her husband to buy a house locally. At one time they called me saying they were looking at a house in Hoa. I told them hell no, it's not a good idea. I've seen enough horror about Hoas on Reddit, and warned Sis and Bill to steer clear of them. And they listened. They settled on a nice 4-bedroomed house that was built in the 80s and remodeled a few years prior. They're very comfortable there, but they did have to replace the water heater. I came in to help, as I'd done it before with a friend. Other than that, they've had no problem with the house, other than baby-proofing it for my nephew. There ended up being a few small loose ends, like evil Mama Bear owing some minor credit debt, inheritance taxes, and evil Mama Bear's car was missing. It had been stolen around the time evil Mama Bear died, and was eventually found wrecked near the border to Mexico with a lot of parts stolen off of it. None of us would have wanted that car anyway, so off to the scrapyard it went. Pretty much all of evil Mama Bear's possessions were sold with the house. None of us wanted any of it, and selling the house fully furnished added to its appeal. If there's anything I'd have to begrudgingly admit about my mother, it's that she had good taste in furniture, and how to arrange it. Well, she can arrange the devil's furniture now. I'm still in therapy, and probably will be for a while. But my marriage is going well, and I'm happy. So I guess this completely ends everything with evil Mama Bear. She's dead, and there's no more need to speak of her. So now, finally and assuredly, this is likely my last post about her, unless something she's done comes back to bite us from beyond the grave. Thanks everyone for reading. I know it was a lot.